Don, what's the word?
Wreckage.
Wreckage?
Yes, I've cleaned up the wreckage of my past. Now I'm trying to live in today and not in the wreckage of my future.
Where'd you hear that?
I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
And I am Olis, an alcoholic in Oakland, California.
Oakland!
Woohoo!
How you doing, Olis?
Life is amazing. I just got back from a conference. I got to spend some time with my sponsor, and she was the Friday night speaker, and it was just such a good time. Got to spend some time with some people that I know and love in AA. I'm in a high. I'm in an AA high.
It was a conference?
Yes. I believe this is the oldest conference in the country.
AA conference, I guess.
AA conference, that's right. NCCA, the Northern California Council of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the first time I've been. Such great fellowship, marathon meetings, great topics. There was an amazing workshop about the concepts. And so I had a great time.
That's great. I went to D.C. last week on a vacation to look at art. You know, I'm an artist, so I go to all the art galleries and everything and, peruse the D.C. itself. I went into the Capitol and took a tour, and I kind of broke away and searched all the tunnels looking for the secret AA meeting that I understand from a TV show that there's a secret AA meeting there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I did find a meeting at a church across the street from the Capitol, and I went to a noon meeting there in the basement, and it was just great. I had a great time.
It's good to know that the spiritual principles that we live by are being practiced on Capitol Hill.
Wait a minute now. I'm not so sure that our government uses our AA traditions. AA works entirely differently.
I would argue, my fine co-host, the opportunity for people, no matter what career path they're in, to use the spiritual principles that we live by to make them better employees, better friends, better coworkers, better leaders is the best ticket in town.
Well, it's changed my life.
Yep.
Using the traditions and doing service work in AA is where I learned to step back. I don't know if you know this, but I am a power driver. I want to have control, and I have good ideas, and they're really good, and I want everyone to understand them and implement them.
I mean, life would be better if people just did what I wanted, right? Isn't that what I learned in the book Alcoholics Anonymous? Yeah.
But that's not the way we do it.
It's not the way we do it.
So being a power driver and being able to step back and allow trusted servants, our leaders are but trusted servants. Trusted servants means for me to allow other people to do things their way and make mistakes. Sit back and watch that, and I don't have to correct it. These are the things that I've had to do in my home group. And, and we have rotation. Yeah. That's something that's different than anywhere else. I've always thought it's the oddest thing about AA, the way that somebody gets a job, learns how to do it, and then they rotate out. And now that they know how to do it, they're out of there.
The confusion that I shared with you when I first got here is, why would you invest in somebody being competent at something and then rotate them out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were incompetent when they started the job, and then somebody else gets to be incompetent when they start the job, right? We all get to come in and learn and then move on and let someone else have the incredible opportunity of learning how to serve. Let's don't pretend it's easy, right? I believe that the way to know if you're on the spiritual beam or not is to go to the business meeting at your home group.
Yeah.
Because if you think that you've got a great idea, which we all think, and why aren't people listening to my great idea? You get to see yourself in a new light. It's helped me learn how to do the most difficult thing, which is pause.
Mm-hmm. And allow other people to have different ideas and to hear them out.
Yep.
And then to trust that the whole group will It will be God's will be expressed in the group. It's a group conscience that comes in to allow the group to decide rather than me decide. I have an influence, but then I let go.
Yeah. It's this trust that collectively we are the voice of God, that God's voice is expressed in what we do collectively, not what we do individually. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to live.
So the traditions apply to how AA operates, but it also applies to how I operate my life and my relationships in my life.
Absolutely.
And so we have a hot topic today. Hot topic. You mean the AA traditions are for my personal life as well? We have two guests with long-term sobriety.
Kent D. from Concord, California, who is the current chair of the Three Legacies Conference, which is an international hybrid conference that is going to actually spend the entire weekend talking about how do we live the steps, the traditions, and the concepts in our lives.
And we have Lindsey H. from Charlotte, North Carolina. She's the Area 51 Area Alternate Chair. And Lindsey once said, "The traditions ruined my dating life. I finally found a good guy when I practiced traditions in dating and relationships." Woo! There's a lot to talk about.
That's good, because all we do is talk, talk, talk.
It's not just talk podcast. This isn't a music podcast. And now a little music. The news. AA Grapevine is excited to announce that deaf alcoholics can share their stories with other deaf alcoholics on our YouTube channel using American Sign Language. An independent vodcast team worked with Grapevine to produce these, and to avoid anonymity breaks, AA members' stories are signed by professional ASL interpreters. Grapevine has created a new playlist featuring these videos on its YouTube channel called American Sign Language. Search AA Grapevine on YouTube to find it. Please share this news in your AA network.
The Plain Language Big Book is a tool to help readers understand the book Alcoholics Anonymous, which was first published in 1939. This new book is designed so that the AA 12-step program of recovery from alcoholism may be easily understood and accessible by all people who have a desire to stop drinking.
Members of AA fondly call the original book Alcoholics Anonymous the Big Book. It's the basic text for the AA program. The Plain Language Big Book has been written to present the original ideas and same spiritual message of the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous.
This new text is not intended to replace the much-beloved Big Book. Rather, the Plain Language Big Book is a book crafted over several years by AA members and publishing professionals to support alcoholics on the path to recovery. The book is intended to help people who have a problem with alcohol gain access to AA's life-saving message.
For years, AA members have expressed the need for a Plain Language Big Book. Based on the shared experience of AA members, some people may not have regular contact with other members of AA to help them understand our program of recovery and the language of the original book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Other people have a hard time reading, especially books that were written long ago. This Plain Language Big Book is written in simpler language to support readers in their recovery.
The Plain Language Big Book covers the core content of what is the abridged version, the edition without personal stories, of the original Big Book. Readers are also encouraged to seek out the current edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous and meet with AA members to support their own individual paths of recovery from alcoholism.
The Plain Language Big Book is AA General Service Conference approved literature and is available now for $11. As always, AA encourages ordering our literature via your local distribution sources, groups, districts, intergroups, and central offices, as they play a vital role in local 12-step activities.
Hello, my name is Kent D. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous since 8/8/88. My home group is the Love and Service Group in Pleasant Hill, California.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is December 2nd, 2014, and my home group is Sober Mamas in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Woohoo! Well, welcome, Kent, and welcome, Lindsay.
And what perfect guests for this hot topic.
Kent, let's get to know you first. Tell us a little bit about how you got sober.
Well, I got to Alcoholics Anonymous by mistake. I wasn't an alcoholic. I've never tried to quit drinking, so I've never failed at getting sober. I was chasing a skirt. She said, well, why aren't you working? And I said, well, I'm in between jobs about 3 years. And so she said, well, why don't you go back to work? So for me to go back to work, I had to get permission from the state of California, and they seemed to think that I had a problem with alcohol. I explained to them, I answered all of their questions. I told them, I went through child custody and divorce and bankruptcy and evictions. And, if you had the kind of problems that I had, you would understand that alcohol is how I get through those things. It's not a problem for me. It's my solution. And the guy was arguing with me, and I was thinking, here's an idiot in charge of my life. And he finally got so upset with me, he said, well, if you're going to go back to work, you're going to have to go to 3 meetings a week for 5 years. I explained to him, I thought that was really overkill, even if you were alcoholic.
What alcoholic cannot identify with, wait a minute, alcohol's the solution?
And if you had my problems, you drink too. Yeah.
Right.
So you discovered Alcoholics Anonymous from going to these 3 mandatory meetings a week?
Well, they only let me work 1 day a week. So I decided, because some of the stories were pretty interesting, some racy stories. Every once in a while, you get one like, it was so entertaining, it was worth going. I would actually go to more than 1 meeting a day. I had nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Go to you want to go. I've always said that AA is more entertaining than television.
Who needs reality TV?
So it happens that when I was a year and 2 weeks sober, there was this guy who said what I heard him say, that every time he had gotten in trouble with the law or did something he was embarrassed about, he was loaded. I think of myself as like cutting edge of modern thought. So, for a guy to take over a year to figure out that he really belonged in AA, there's a little disparity there. And so maybe delusional might be a realistic definition. I started thinking back to all those things that I got into trouble with the law and done some embarrassing things. And I belong here.
Ken, I didn't think I was an alcoholic when I got here. I was coming here just to dry out, get my consequences off of me. I wasn't coming to stay and belong to this group with you people. Absolutely not. But it takes us sometimes longer to figure out, I'm not here by mistake. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
So, Kent, where did the steps and the traditions come into your life?
I was an atheist, or as close to an atheist as I could be when I got here. But looking back, I now see how God had done some pretty amazing things. He had put that woman in my life to get me to AA. Nothing else would have got me to AA. I ended up getting involved in a strong AA group. And this woman, Nancy from upstate New York, befriended me. She had 41 years of sobriety at the time. She knew Bill and Bob, and she had a bunch of recordings that she wanted someone to listen to. I worked an hour away, so I listened to a recording on the way down and on the way back. And so I'm listening to recordings of speakers from the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Is this some kind of a trick to get you to listen to AA, be brainwashed by those AAs?
Well, the local service center was donated all these tapes, and they wanted people to come in and check them out. So Nancy asked me if I would help see if there was a message on that tape.
Whether it was one worth keeping and distributing.
What happened was it went to the floor of intergroup, and the floor of intergroup said, well, we don't want all of those tapes to go up there. And I thought, what do you mean, Joe and Charlie? Those are my favorites. They were like intellectual candy.
Mm-hmm.
And the intergroup had the audacity to go through each of the traditions and apply the traditions to that lending library. And that was my very first exposure to the traditions in my first year of sobriety.
Wow.
The only problem was they were recommending that some of my favorites not be put in the library.
Because it broke the traditions.
Correct.
In what way?
The intergroup came to the decision the only recordings that would go on the wall were those of AA members speaking at an AA meeting, telling their story of recovery from the disease of alcoholism through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Well, I can tell you that I listened to the Joe and Charlie tapes. That opened up the big book for me for one of the first times. It really made it clear to me how the big book was structured and put together. So, I mean, there's a lot to be learned, but I guess it wasn't.
No, the statement was, it was an AA member sharing their story of recovery from the disease of alcoholism. Yeah. Well, Joe and Charlie didn't fit that criteria.
They do not. It's not to say there's not value in that.
No.
But the guidelines that they offered applying their traditions are perfect.
Or perhaps it's the group, each group's autonomous. That was their decision on how to structure it.
Well, it also got rid of Reverend Shoemaker, Bob Jr., Smitty.
Bob's son.
Lois.
Yeah.
But I had such a profound awareness of the value of the traditions because they applied to a problem in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was my first exposure to the power that is in the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have since then just loved everything about utilizing the traditions in all of my life.
Lindsey, let's hear how you got sober, what brought you to AA.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's quite a story. I was a complete and utter train wreck when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I will never, ever, ever talk about drinking and not say that I didn't have a good time, because I did. I had a lot of consequences, but at the beginning it was my solution. It's what made me feel complete. I had this thing inside of me always since I was born. I just never felt enough. And when I started drinking as a teenager, I finally felt I was everything everybody wanted me to be. I was having an identity crisis as little as kindergarten, and I don't even know who I thought I was supposed to be at 5 years old, but I was terrified every day of my life that everyone was going to find out who I really was and that I wasn't anything they thought I was, and I just wasn't good. And so alcohol was a solution for a while, and I had a great time. I partied really hard. I had consequences relatively early on. They continued to build. And I think that's important, is to be able to still say, like, I had a good time sometimes, because I was so scared when I got sober that all of that would go away. Like, what would happen to the memories of me dancing at my sister's wedding and all these other things that I had memories of when I was drinking. And the beauty of it is I get to live more than one life, and not that many people even get to say that. But I had this, life of a party girl that just turned on me, and I'll never, ever, ever forget the morning that it turned on me, the morning that I woke up and I couldn't go an hour without alcohol.
Yeah.
And I never thought that would happen. Here I am, I'm 25 years old. And I reach for the bottle of vodka under my pillow because it sleeps with me, because I can't get through the night without it anymore. And it's just like, never would have dawned that would have happened to me. And I spent the next 5 years of my life physically addicted to alcohol, having no idea what was happening, convinced that I had something medically wrong with me, yet not seeking any medical attention for a diagnosis. So somewhere on the inside, I knew, but I didn't know. Like, the amount of denial is so insane. The one thing that gets me to stop shaking is another drink. And yet it never dawned on me that I had a problem with alcohol. And so when I finally did have a moment of clarity and determined, like, oh, I don't know, maybe this isn't normal and other people live like that. Like, there's a different way to live. That's what I knew. I had a moment of clarity that brought me some hope of, there are 30-year-old women all around the world, and they don't live like this.
Well, how did you get that moment of clarity?
My higher power, which I wouldn't have admitted until I was at least a year or two sober, I just literally like my higher power is a total jerk because I'm stubborn. And so that's just like my God speaks to me in the most like profound, like in your face kind of ways. And so I reach for that bottle under the pillow one night about 2 a.m. and I just have this moment of like, this isn't normal. And some other like choice words. I think every time I've ever really heard my higher power speak to me, there's some choice words in it. And I just thought it was like this little moment of hope that maybe there was something else I could do. And that next morning, off we went to get me into a detox or rehab. And I just couldn't. I was unemployed and uninsured, and I couldn't get in anywhere. I told the truth for the first time on any assessment that I'd ever taken in my whole life, and nobody would take me for 30 days of treatment. And so I got into outpatient. It didn't start for 2 weeks. I was utterly terrified. Here I am finally willing to not drink, and I don't know what to do. And 12 years earlier, I had had some breadcrumbs planted for me about a place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I walked into my first meeting, and AA got me sober. It kept me sober long enough to even do the outpatient treatment. And I've been here ever since.
When did you learn of the steps and the traditions?
I got a sponsor. I was a week sober. I was like kind of sponsor shopping.
Well, I think that's a good idea to sponsor shop. I mean,
I sponsor shopped until I heard a woman speak from the podium about a lot of crazy things that I had also done. And I thought, oh, this woman can't judge me. And I walked up to her and I said, I'm the biggest liar you're ever going to meet, and don't believe anything I say. And, my first sponsor never asked me, are you willing to go to any length? And I think it's because I approached her with such desperation and I'm a liar, don't believe me. And I worked with her. I mean, every day I just jumped in. I did like 180 in 90 days. I'm an overachiever. Didn't know that till I got sober. And I just made that promise to myself at the very beginning. I knew I was different. I knew this wouldn't work. And I just made a promise to myself that I was going to give AA everything I had. And I waited for the day you all gave me permission to drink or to die. And I've never been given permission to do either things. All I've ever been told is, we love you and keep coming back.
Along that journey, when did you get exposed to the traditions? I mean, they're hanging on the wall in most meetings.
So immediately jumped into the steps and did those. And I've done them a million times. I like to do them on emotional sobriety, anytime I have big life changes, becoming a mom, all that stuff. Traditions, I got my 1-year chip and my grand sponsor said, do you want to be the GSR or the intergroup rep? And GSR just had a little bit like, I don't know, shorter. And so it seemed easier. And so I said, I'll take that. I started looking at the traditions because of the service work that I was doing outside of the home group. When I learned them at the area level and at the intergroup level, I actually was able to then start to look at them at the home group level. And then it blew my mind when I signed up to do a workshop at an area assembly, and it turned out the topic was traditions in everyday life. And I think I was about 4 years sober then, and that's really when I started looking at what am I doing in my everyday life already, and where could I be doing better by using these traditions. If this is helping me get sober, other people get sober, helping us not kill each other, where could I be using this at work, with my family, with friendships? And it totally just changed it for me.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it applies to all my relationships, in that it's about getting along with other people and allowing them to be, and getting my ego out of everything. And not having my ego in a relationship turns out to be really a good thing.
Yes.
It's time for our hot topic. Hot topic. You mean the AA traditions are for my personal life as well. And Lindsey, I want to get you to open up with it, because you kind of gave us the suggestion for this topic when you wrote, the traditions ruined my dating life. I finally found a good guy when I practiced the traditions in dating and relationships. So what does that mean?
That's totally true. So, like I said, so I was a train wreck when I first got sober, and so I didn't date until I was actually 3 years sober. When I first started dating, I realized so many things that I was looking for was different from anything I had ever looked for before. I was in a place where I was practicing the principles. And all of a sudden, I start realizing what I'm looking for in a partner is somebody who has these principles. And it doesn't mean I'm looking for somebody who's in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
I'm looking for somebody who lives their life with these principles. I also saw Tradition 7 really came up a lot in dating for me. I was on a date with a guy one time and he went on and on about hopefully his mommy will fly him home so he can party with his friends for his birthday. And all I could hear as he's talking is not self-supporting through his own contributions.
Mhm.
And I like went to the bathroom. I scheduled my next date for later that week. I came back. I have integrity. I said I was going to come. I showed up. I drank my coffee. I left. Never talked to that man again. He's not my jam.
Right.
That was not what I was looking for in someone. And so everything I had been hearing in these meetings, everything I had been reading about in the traditions ended up being what I was looking for in how someone lives their life.
Mhm.
So you found someone that you were looking for who lived the traditions?
I did. I mean, I found him at a district meeting. So shout out to General Service in Area 51.
Absolutely. It's a whole new meaning to boy meets girl in AA. It doesn't necessarily mean the meeting. It can
Yeah.
be in a district or an assembly.
Yes.
Kent, how do you react to, you mean the AA traditions are for my personal life as well?
While I had my own business, I didn't know how to run a business. So what I ended up doing was taking the traditions, which I had learned early on in my sobriety, and deciding, well, if they worked in AA, maybe they'd work in my business. Well, sometimes I didn't do it all the time. There was this one, I had this great idea that if we changed to a different credit card company, we'd have all of these wonderful benefits. And I was convincing the people who had to do it my way. And after about 3 months, she came to me and she says, I know you think that's a wonderful way to do things, but I'd like to let you know, here's all the problems that it's creating. And she and the other gal on the front desk proved to me that my brilliant idea would have been better if I had found an informed group conscience on how to move forward. Well, that was kind of one of those wake up moments that, okay, maybe you should practice the traditions a little better in your work. My wife is in Alcoholics Anonymous. We can function better because we both know the three legacies of Alcoholics Anonymous and practice them in our marriage. The way we have come to an informed group conscience is to give my wife substantial unanimity and me a minority opinion.
I love you. Both you and your wife, Debbie D., are quite active in Alcoholics Anonymous. You're currently the chair of the Three Legacy Conference.
The Unity and Service Conference. This year is the first year that it has become the Three Legacies Conference.
Okay, what's the three legacies?
Recovery, unity, and service. The steps, the traditions, and the concept.
If you look at the logo of Alcoholics Anonymous, it is a circle, which I think of as my whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
My sex life, my finances, my career, it's everything. And inside of it is a special kind of triangle in equilateral. All three sides are equal. And they represent the three legacies: unity, service, recovery. Recovery is the steps, unity is the tradition, service is the concepts.
Beautiful. I love that symbol.
Honestly, I use the common welfare should come first and unity in my everyday life. I use it in my family and I use it at work all the time. Like I have 2 toddlers now with my husband. We have like constant group conscience meetings. Like, what is our common welfare right now? Not what does Lindsey want? And I have to think about that work too. When I look at our team as a whole and not just what my role is, I have to remember that we all have to have that same priority. We have to have that same primary purpose. And it really comes down to tradition 4 for me. When I look at each group autonomous, I think about that in everyday life, like, do you? But when it affects other people, you better go back to tradition 1 and look at what the common welfare is of the group, whether that is my family at home, my team at work, a meeting. If I am affecting anybody else, it really has to be a place where I'm going to apply traditions. If it's just me, it's a little bit different. But the longer I've been sober, the more I look into these things, there's not much in my life that I do that doesn't affect anyone else. That ripple effect and being aware of that, that's really where it comes into play for me.
Yeah. If I'm only thinking about me, I've completely missed the point of being recovered. If I'm selfish, I've totally missed the point of what this deal is.
In reading the 12 and 12, every single one of them really keeps coming down to this deflation of ego at depth. I've got to be letting go. I've got to allow other people to be. I have to be generous in my thoughts and in my actions to other people. I need to be stepping back when I get agitated and angry and go into my higher power for help. And it's always ego deflation at depth.
I mean, the 10th step in the 12 and 12 leads me to that I'm frequently wrong, potentially emotionally ill, and my favorite, that whenever I'm disturbed, it's me. It's not you and what you've done, but that every single time it's me. And it frees me to say, maybe you have a better idea. Maybe I don't know what's best. Maybe the thing I'm upset about is not even real.
I hate it when that happens. Well, I want to give some people some resources. The AA Grapevine Traditions Checklist, awesome, which you can find on aa.org, and it is Traditions Checklist from the AA Grapevine. And that's a list of questions that was put together on each tradition. It actually works really well for a group inventory, and you can turn it around as a personal inventory. But another resource that I did a traditions study with Monica F.
out of Chicago. We love you, Monica.
Chicagoland. Hey, Monica. I got so much of that, and I can tell you that my behavior changed as much as it did from the first time I did the steps, when I did the traditions with her, and the depth we went into each one of them. And one of the things we used was the 12 traditions in relationships. That is not conference approved, but it is Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you search for Dave and Polly 12 Traditions PDF, you'll find it. And it has some questions like this. 1, our common welfare should come first. A healthy relationship depends on unity. Questions. What am I willing to sacrifice for our relationship? Do I do unifying things? Or am I quick to criticize, slow to praise? Do I make backstabbing comments? I mean, to really look at my behavior in the relationship. Am I gossiping? Is that unifying? It goes so deep. Am I a healing, mending, integrating force in our marriage? Or am I divisive? Can I be flexible?
It sounds annoying, which means I should do it. When anytime I feel that, I know that there is a tremendous amount of growth that can come from that. So I get annoyed and then I get excited.
Ooh, I like your approach there, Lindsey. Let me read one more tradition. Tradition 10, we're each entitled to our own opinion on outside issues. Hence, our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. This is another from Dave and Polly. Do I give the impression that we have an opinion and I am its keeper? Am I careful to keep confidences given to me by my partner? How important is it for me to be right? Would I rather be right than happy? Kent, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I do. My wife was invited to talk about applying the traditions in her relationship. And we were in the car on the way back. And when we got to tradition 10, and she says to me, how would you practice tradition 10 in our relationship? And my response was, well, maybe you should consider my defects of character as outside issues. And she goes, but. And she just turned white thinking, oh my God. But she does a pretty good job of it these days.
I feel like I was personally attacked when you asked the question, would you rather be right or happy? And when I first got sober, my response would have been, well, clearly happiness is when I'm right. Like, the two go hand in hand.
Good answer.
And it's so interesting to think now. My answer would be, I'd just rather be happy because I don't have to be right. And I think that is just years of diving deeper into practicing humility and awareness. And I still have so much growth I need to do in that. It's a huge part of like, I don't have to give my opinion. Like with my job, I have a job in leadership that while it's not an authoritative job, it can be seen as others as an authoritative thing. It's even in service with certain service positions. I try to be really cognizant of the fact that while there is no authoritative figure in Alcoholics Anonymous, people can feel that way, especially a newcomer. And so, like at district meetings, when I was the DCM, I was really careful not to give my opinion on things until other people's had started to share. And then I would just try to be that clarifying voice. I really try to do that at work and even within my family. I don't have to tell everybody my opinion of everything. It's often just me telling my husband when we get home from a social gathering or a work event. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all those people were totally wrong. And you know what I was really thinking? But I don't have to tell everybody what I think or what they should think anymore. And I think that is really just the principles. It's the more that I have worked those in my everyday life, day after day, I no longer feel like I am really that important when I walk in a room. And that may be one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given by sponsorship is the constant reminder that you're not that important, Lindsey. You just need to sit down.
It's that stepping back. And I found that in service. I'm going to tell a story that makes me look bad. So I was in a business meeting. I know how important everyone's time is. And the person running the meeting was allowing people to go on and on. So I just started interrupting and making sure the meeting moved forward and moved down the agenda so that the meeting ran better. And the meeting did run better. We got everything done that we needed to accomplish within an hour, and everybody went home. And I was sharing how well this worked with Monica, who I've been doing a service study with. And she said, well, that's great. It's true that the meeting should run really well. But now, were you the chairperson? No. No, I wasn't. We have trusted servants and we allow trusted servants to do. And I realized that's exactly the tradition that applies to this. And it's not my place to be jumping into somebody else's lane and controlling things. And as you said, Lindsey, my opinion of how the meeting needs to be run is my opinion. And if I'm not in the position to run the meeting, it's wrong for me to jump out and run it.
Yeah.
So you learned that you just weren't that important.
I learned that I'm just not that important. And I learned that my idea of how everything should operate may not be right. Even if I feel I'm certain that it's right, I'm not so sure anymore.
I mean, that's where the growth happens. I don't know when I'm right. There are many instances like that one where it turns out I'm wrong.
Well, I find out that I am right, but I'm not all right.
Yeah.
I'm not all right.
My sponsor says, Olis, you were right, but you were wrong the way that you were right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel that.
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Okay, so the sum of our show today is, would you rather be right or would you rather be all right?
Mhm. We want to hear your thoughts on, you mean the AA traditions are for my personal life as well?
Call and leave us a message. You can find the number at aagrapevine.org. You'll find the podcast button up at the top.
What a great conversation, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. I would hang out with you guys anytime. This was fun.
Yes.
I love meeting everybody.
The Grapevine and La Viña apps are now available for both iOS and Android phones.
To get yours, go to the App Store on your phone and search for AA Grapevine or La Viña.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo.
A horse walked into a bar and ordered a drink.
That'll be $1. By the way, you're the first horse I ever saw in here.
The horse slapped down a dollar bill.
At these prices, I'm the last one too, bub.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.